Good evening. Today is November 20th, 2015. I'm sorry. Today is November 20th, 2020. Let me correct myself. I'm going to be talking about what happened on November 20th, 2015, 5 years ago. It was a very eventful day for me. I spent the day in my hometown of Waco, Texas. And I want to talk tonight about four men who meant a great deal to me, and none of them are with us anymore. One of them was Dr. Weldon J. Walton. I have a picture here of Dr. Walton standing at a graduation ceremony with Debbie Connor, a mutual friend of ours and former student of his. And he was my friend and colleague for many years. Dr. Walton was born on January 12, 1943, in Bryan, Texas. He received his Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees from Prairie View A&M University, with concentrations in biology and chemistry. He later earned a Doctor of Education with special emphasis on science education from Walden University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He pursued postdoctoral studies in zoology at Texas A&M University. He taught at Paul Quinn College in Waco and Dallas for over 40 years, serving as a distinguished professor of biology, director of the honors program, divisional chair of arts and sciences, and vice president for academic affairs. Under his leadership, 7 national collegiate academic honors societies were chartered, extending to every academic major offered at Paul Quinn College. Early in his career, he taught courses at Prairie View and also at McLennan Community College in Waco. He was made a professor emeritus at Paul Quinn in 2010, and following his retirement, as a result of my recommendation, he taught part-time at Navarro College in Midlothian. Dr. Walton was a member of Second Baptist Church in Waco. He had a reputation as a trailblazer and a bridge builder who was a model of excellence for church members, students, and colleagues. On October 20th, 1973, he was initiated into Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. On April 5th, 1975, he founded this fraternity's Zeta Eta chapter in Waco. Members of the chapter have been featured in Omega's national publication called The Oracle. They performed an international conclave step show, and they've served as district officers, scholarship awardees, and recipients of distinguished Omega Man of the Year award. At the time of his death, Dr. Walton held the title of Keeper of Records and Seal Emeritus. I first met Dr. Walton during the fall of 1986 when I began working as coordinator of Archives and Cultural Center at Paul Quinn College in Waco, the same semester that I enrolled in PhD studies at Baylor. So Dr. Walton had a chance to observe me in every stage of the PhD program. And the good times and the bad times, the periods of elation and the periods of frustration. In June of 1987, I became chair of the Department of Religion at Paul Quinn under the Division of Arts and Sciences, and thus he became my immediate supervisor. Our professional relationship was superb. He was always encouraging of my work in ministry, teaching, and writing. In 1994, he wrote for me a letter of recommendation for a faculty improvement grant from the United Negro College Fund. The grant was approved, and as a result, I was granted a sabbatical so that I could devote full time to research and writing for my doctoral dissertation. I graduated on May 13, 1995. 11 years later, my dissertation was published as Eliphas Levi and the Kabbalah, a Masonic and French connection of the American mystery tradition. And in my acknowledgement page, I said I'm also grateful to Dr. Weldon J. Walton, Vice President for Academic Affairs at Paul Quinn College, for arranging for me a sabbatical in order to devote full time to the work of my dissertation during the 1994-95 academic year. And so his help in making this book possible, I will always remember. And testimonies indicate he wrote many letters of recommendations for students and colleagues over the years. The distinguished life and career of Weldon Judd Walton came to an end on November 7, 2015. I was one of the speakers at the memorial service sponsored by the Paul Quinn College Alumni Association in the Grand Lounge on the Dallas campus that occurred November 16th, along with Paul Quinn College President Michael J. Sorrell, National Alumni President Bess Dunner, State Representative Tony Rose, and several others. I also attended his funeral at Carver Park Baptist Church 5 years ago today. The eulogy was delivered by Pastor Galen P. Foreman of Carver Park. And at this service, or in fact at both services, I saw a number of former students and colleagues. And I thank God for Dr. Walton, who made such a positive impact on so many lives throughout his long academic career. He was glad to be a part of his service, both of the services, the one in Dallas and the one in Waco. That night, I had learned that a man whom I didn't know well, I think I may have met him years ago, but I was not well acquainted with him. His name was John Garraby. He had been manager of the Abraxas Club in Waco during the early 1970s, which was a place for rest and recreation of members of La Razanita Party, the political expression of the Chicano movement that was active during this time. And I've written a great deal about the Abraxas Club and the roots of the name among the Gnostics in 2nd century Egypt, truly a fascinating study. But I went to Waco that day and went to Dr. Walton's funeral and also attended the wake and rosary held that night at Conley Compton Funeral Home in Waco. There were a few hours in between time in which I had to find something to do. And I took that time to visit with two former professors. I have a picture here made at the time of Baylor's homecoming in 2010, so this is 5 years earlier. And right here in the black suit is Dr. Glenn Hilburn, under whom I studied church history. Standing next to him in the blue is Dr. Wally Christian, under whom I studied theology. Two outstanding men, outstanding professors. Here I am over here. This was a meeting, was a breakfast held at Truett Theological Seminary, bringing together a number of us who were ministerial students at Baylor during the early 1970s. And we were able to be together again and bring each other up to date on our lives and ministerial careers and all the things that went on. And it was good to have two of our favorite professors there with us. Well, in the following 5 years, both men were in their late 80s and they were experiencing many health problems. I went to Hewitt Senior Care and visited with Dr. Hilburn. Had prayer with him. Then I went to Providence Hospital and visited with Dr. Wally Christian and also had prayer with him. 10 days later, Dr. Christian passed away, and I was able to attend his memorial service at 7th and James Baptist Church in Waco. We live in the Lord, say the same. We'll do another video on December 5th, marking the 5th anniversary of that day. And then Dr. Hilburn died the following June, and I attended his wake, his viewing, at a funeral home in Waco shortly after his death. But I thank God I was able to visit with both of these men, one who had taught me theology, the other who had taught me church history, and have prayer with them and express my appreciation for what they did and the positive influence they had on me. Little did I know, well, I had called my ex-roommate, Mike Contreras Jr. This was actually taken that night at John Garaby's wake. Mike and I were roommates at Baylor from 1973-74 school year. And Mike and I maintained our friendship for 43 years. Little did I know this would be the last time that I would see Mike. At the wake, I was able to visit and pray with the Garaby family, and Mike and I walked out together after having this picture made. I talked with him one more time on April the 21st, 2016, in which we would always talk on April 21st because we met April 21st, 1973. Then in August of 2016, I received a call from Mike's wife, Tina, informing me that Mike had passed away that day. My wife, Deborah, and I attended his funeral at the St. Joseph Catholic Church in Belmead outside of Waco. And this is a picture of Deborah and I with Tina taken following Mike's funeral. And so I do thank God for being a friend and colleague of Dr. Weldon Walton, being a student of Dr. Wally Christian and Dr. Glenn Hilburn, and for being a friend for 43 years of Mike Contreras Jr. And I thank God for the role I was able to play at the memorial services for Dr. Walton and for my last visits with my roommate Mike and with these two wonderful professors. 5 years ago today, November 20th, 2015, was truly an awesome day. Have a good evening and God bless.